Starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good day, everybody. This is Steve Anderson. Welcome to our pre-webinar. Today, we're going to get started here in about 6 minutes. You're in listen-only mode. That means that you should be able to hear me, but we can't hear you in order to minimize the background noise so that everybody can enjoy the webinar without any sound pollution. So I'm going to just run through a couple of housekeeping items and a few announcements while you're getting settled, and we're waiting for everyone else to arrive. And so looking forward to a great course today. A couple of things on the current events front. We're looking forward to the Crown Council annual event starting on Thursday, January 30th. Friday the 31st and Saturday, February 1st in Dallas, Texas at the Omni Hotel. This will be the 19th annual event of the Crown Council, and it's going to prove to be big. Yeah, we're very excited. Got some great stuff coming up. We have some great pre-event events, if you will, on Thursday, January the 30th from 8 until noon. We're going to have a very special No More Hygiene update meeting for all those that have been through that training, so that if anyone who's been through the No More Hygiene course, you're welcome to come in Wednesday night and join us on Thursday from 8 to noon for a No More Hygiene modular periodontal therapy update. Dr. Neighbors has put together some great case studies and some new science that he'll be presenting for everybody that morning. We're going to have a great pre-event kickoff activity on Thursday afternoon that you will not want to miss. We have just, right before this call, I finished inviting one of my favorite friends who has a worldwide reputation, who's going to join us for that Thursday afternoon to do something most unusual and unforgettable. And then Thursday evening, we have bought out the Majestic Theater in downtown Dallas, Texas, and we are going to have yet another Smiles for Life benefit concert featuring some of the biggest names in Texas country music. So those of you that were with us earlier this year in Nashville, we had a great concert at the Ryman Theater. Now coming to Texas, we're going to do it Texas style. And one of the fun things, we have some amazing artists in Texas that are going to join us for that evening at the Majestic Theater. 100% of the money goes to kids, to Smiles for Life, and to some local benefits here. So if you have not signed up for the annual event, you can do that. The best way is to call the Crown Council office at 800-276-9658. That's 1-800-276-9658, and sign up for that, as well as if you have any questions about hotel accommodations or any of those details. Looking forward to an amazing experience. On the Smiles for Life front, last Friday, all of the local charity benefit checks were mailed from the Crown Council office. So you should be receiving those this week to set up a time when you can do an official check presentation to the local charity if you did choose one. This year's Smiles for Life campaign raised over $1.5 million. For now, we are now in excess of $33 million raised in Smiles for Life campaign charity money over the life of the campaign. So it continues to be an amazing experience. The latest skill of the week was posted just today, and so I hope you're taking advantage of those every week. We post one every week. They last 3 or 4 minutes each to keep you up to speed on some of the best case acceptance skills. As well as you'll see a new Mentor of the Month program that will be posted today. The one that's there now with Dr. Adrian Fenderson, a longtime Crown Council lifetime qualified member who shares 20 things that have made him a better dentist. And the one that will be posted today is a great interview with author Karen Dillon. Karen has been the past editor of the Harvard Business Review, as well as an associate editor of Inc. magazine, and she is co-author of the book How Will You Measure Your Life, which is a great book on life balance and the things that really matter. So that will be posted later today, along with today's webinar. So at the conclusion of the webinar, there's a few little technical things we need to do, and then we'll post the webinar on the Crown Council website at crowncouncil.org under training, and then under the webinar tab. If there are members of your team that weren't able to participate today, you can go back and you can watch that webinar in its entirety, along with any of the resource materials that we'll talk about today. Again, just as a reminder, you're in listen-only mode. This is Steve Anderson from the Crown Council and the Total Patient Service Institute, and we are now ready to begin our webinar. We will pause here for just one moment, and then we will begin. All right, good day, everybody. This is Steve Anderson, and welcome to our webinar today, Stop the Insanity, Controlling the Schedule Before It Kills You. With me today is Chris Daconis, Practice Advisor from the Total Patient Service Institute. And just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. You're in listen-only mode. That means you can hear us. We can't hear you in order to minimize the background noise. At any time, if you have questions regarding the content of the webinar, you're welcome to enter those in your control panel. There's a chat box in the control panel where you can enter your questions at any time. We'll take those at the conclusion of the webinar, and we'll answer those in first come, first serve order. So feel free to post those as you think of them during the webinar, and we'll deal with those about 45 minutes after the hour. So with that, we'll get started. Chris, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm excited to get started and share some information with the team members out there that have been chomping at the bit about how to control the schedule before it controls you.
Fantastic. So for starters, let's put the first image up here on the screen. Hopefully no one has ever felt like this, but I highly suspect there are some who have felt like this. After a week in the dental office trying to hold the schedule together, you may have thought that you were a candidate to go see your therapist to check your sanity of trying to keep what seems like an insane environment and keep your own sanity in the process. And so today what we're going to talk about is some things that will preserve your sanity as you work every day to construct and maintain a well-run, functioning, productive schedule in the dental office, especially when you're dealing with human beings that aren't always 100% predictable in their behavior and when they show and don't show. And so we're going to talk about how to keep as much sanity in there as possible. In the next slide, I thought you all might relate to this. This is Olympic sprinter Michael Johnson. And sometimes I know that when it comes to scheduling, we behave and we act like it's a sprint. And sometimes I know you probably feel like that as every morning you get up and you go to the office, and it's it really is a lot of work to sprint and keep track of the different moving parts of the schedule. Recently, I had a discussion with one of Michael Johnson's trainers, a physician actually, who has done a tremendous amount of work with him in developing his training regimen. And one of the things that he shared with me is that I was very surprised to learn. As he said, most people are surprised when they find out that in a typical workout on a daily basis, he said Michael Johnson will really only run 3 to 5 sprints a day. and then he'll do some weight training. But that's about the extent of his workout, is 3 to 5 sprints a day, and those sprints are all out. I mean, he's given it everything he has, and then he does some weight training and some other things, and then he's done for the day. And I'm sure it's a little bit more involved than that, but the rationale behind that, he said, was when he gives it everything he's got in those sprints, then he's done. After he does that 3 to 5 times, he's created enough muscle destruction that he has to give his body some repair time before he does that again. And that's analogous to me sometimes of, I think, how we interact with the schedule. Is sometimes it feels like a sprint all day long. And the thing I learned here from Michael Johnson's trainer is you can't sprint all day long. It is very destructive, and the human body can't even sustain that kind of a workout. And so really the whole scheduling process is more like a marathon. This is Patrick McCaw, who is the current World Olympic record holder. So he holds the record time in a marathon, in the marathon. And clearly, training for a marathon and running a marathon is very different than running a sprint. The marathon is a long-term proposition. The training is much more time-intensive, and it's a long-term, much more of a long-term event. And while scheduling sometimes feels like a sprint, it really is a marathon, because what we're trying to accomplish is the long-term result of having a productive schedule every day, every week, so that we treat patients the right way and that we accomplish the practice objectives. So that's our goal today, is we're going to set out the workout plan for the marathon. Now, one of the important things to consider here is that there will be a number of things that we'll discuss today and present that will not be new. In fact, if everything we present today is brand new and a brand new idea, that would probably indicate you're brand new to dentistry and have not had much training. So for most, this is going to be like spring cleaning. We're going to open the drawers, we're going to open the closets, and we're going to clear out a lot of the maybe old bad productive. And so I hope that as we go through this, as Chris walks through some of the basic fundamentals here, you'll examine what you typically do and ask yourself, gee, what are some of the things that I'm doing that I need to throw out that aren't working, and really stick to the core wardrobe, or the things that really make the most sense, that do work, so that we can have a consistent, predictable schedule all day, every day. So with that, Chris, your first tip.
All right. So, I was thinking about templates, and when I thought about templates for scheduling, I thought, there's so many things that I do and other people do that has a system that gets great results. And I want you to think about when Christmas time rolls around and you decide to make your famous Christmas cookies, and you search and search in your kitchen for that one cookie cutter that you use every year to have that successful cookie that everybody recognizes. It always tastes good. It's always the perfect shape. And you use it for that reason every year. So when you do that, you get that successful cookie and that happy experience. We've got to do that with a template in the practice. You have to find that perfect shape. And if you don't have a template in place, find one that works for you and your team, because the more and more you have that perfect shape every day, you're going to get that perfect cookie and that better result. So questions to ask yourself are, do we have a system? Have we ever felt like we're getting patients in the chair with no rhyme or reason? And if that's how we feel every day, let's agree on a template as a team, know the facts about the template, and then decide what works best for us. Choose a start date, and then get ready to start scheduling your patients following that template. The key is to use your verbal skills with the template, and make sure that as you're getting it in place, you're giving your patients a choice, no more than two, about appointments on that template and not necessarily a chance to be all over your schedule. And that's the goal. So I know that there's a lot out there, guys. I know that you've heard of perfect day scheduling and block scheduling and, rock, sand, water. You have to choose the one that works best for your culture and for your practice and with the resources you have as far as team members there to support that. But let's go ahead and choose one and get the whole team on board with that. You also want to make sure that when you're asking the patient and using those verbal skills to keep in line of the template, you ask them what day of the week do you have the most control of your schedule and the least amount of interruptions. And we find that that's a key question to ask the patient so that you're not only allowing them that choice, but you're giving yourself an opportunity to still have control over your schedule.
So, Chris, just to reiterate then, the verbal skill there is if you were the patient, I would ask you, let's say that we see patients Monday through Thursday or Monday through Friday, depending on what our schedule is. So I would say to you, Chris, which day of the week, Monday through Friday, do you have the most control over, where you have the least likelihood of any kind of an interruption when we should schedule this appointment? So in other words, I'm giving you a choice within the options that are available, correct?
Yes.
So in contrast to that, the wrong way would be, Chris, when would you like to come in?
Yes, or what time works best for you? That's another one. You lose control at that point, and it's not about being controlling. It's about understanding your schedule and offering to the patient what's going to not only work for them, but it's going to fill the holes in your schedule, and you'll still have control over that.
The other reminder here, Chris, that I'm sure everybody remembers is that most of us are more likely to select one of the options that we're given. In other words, if I give you a choice between two things, the likelihood that you'll choose one of those two things is pretty high versus when I just lay it out there and say, when would you like to come in? Then that opens up a whole mess of problems. So choices are always better.
And what was such a great personal experience was when I was first starting with working on the schedule in the dental office, and someone gave me a great little tidbit of information, and that was understand ahead of time the days and times you have available. That's a no-brainer. I realized that I had to have a good little list for myself, so I was planning ahead and really understood the days and the times I had available so that the moment I get to offer it to a patient, I'm offering those days. I've got myself ahead of the game. Now, Steve, what about those difficult patients that always want to do a crown at the end of the day outside your template that you've got in place and you don't want to have to say no?
So again, the best way to do it is to always give them an option or make suggestions of things that will work. So instead of saying, no, Chris, we don't do that, we don't see patients after a certain hour, no, it is, Chris, let's work together and see what we can figure out that will work for our schedules here. And then I'm going to give you options of things that will work. I might even ask you some additional information, say, tell me a little bit about your schedule and what your limitations are, and then let me work with what we've got here and see if we can come up with a good solution for you. So instead of saying no, we can't do it, I'm always looking for the opportunity in the way that I can say yes to the patient.
You'd be surprised how much they feel taken care of when you do it in that way versus we can't do that.
You got it.
And, I love the skill, we call it F3, and it means feel, felt, found. So when we use feel, felt, found, we share with the patient that we understand how they feel. If they're adamant about, I really need this afternoon appointment, this is all I can do, I go back to the F3, the feel, felt, found, and I simply say, I understand how you feel, and what we found works really well for our patients and Dr. Peterson. And what we found is that when you do this treatment, just like our other patients, Dr. Peterson is able to give you her total attention and have the least amount of interruption so she can focus on you. Does that make sense? So typically, you know, the thing is to work on how we can learn how not to say no. What are ways that we can offer options that the patient still feels taken care of without us telling them this is what we can't do. We talk about what we can do.
Got it.
So let's talk about how we understand and schedule a goal. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I feel like we cross our fingers and we are rolling the dice, closing our eyes and hoping for that lucky 7. And if you feel that you and the team don't have a real clear grasp of what your daily goal is, understanding it and scheduling to goal, everybody needs to get that in place and be together on understanding that. It's as if you are just hoping for the best, and I know you've had days like that. So having a target board, understanding goals as a team, reviewing that in the morning huddle, and being on the same page with each other about what we need to do to get to here as a team will help your team members continue to support you with your scheduling. Another interesting thing, we've noticed some team members get really excited. You know, Steve, I was in a practice and this team got so excited because they scheduled to goal for the day. And once they hit that goal, they were done. They said, well, we did it. We're done. Let's go on to the next day. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Let's talk about this. Because in my mind, I thought, okay, let's pretend you're a football player and you're making a touchdown in a game, and then everybody gets excited, you're ahead in the score, and now you've decided to never make a touchdown for the rest of the game. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that if you've met goal, great, keep going. You want to make the best of the schedule that you have, and again, as everybody understands where you have to go as far as your goal for the day, the sky's the limit. You can go beyond that. You don't need to stop. Now, some of you have heard the saying, there's no I in team, but I want to share with you the silent I. That's you, meaning you as the scheduler and you being accountable for the schedule and acting as the go-to person. Huge, important role. And I know that you feel that you're in the hot seat because when the schedule doesn't look great, everybody's looking at you. When the schedule looks great, I don't know if they come to you and say, gosh, that was an awesome day. You made the schedule just rock. However, hoping for that best day, being accountable for the schedule, and acting as the go-to person is a huge role. And cross-training is not a bad thing. You are still the scheduling expert you were meant to be, but the key to this is you. Being the silent I in the team and being accountable is different than being silent. Don't suffer in silence. Go ahead and get help from the team because they're going to be thinking and learn to think on their toes to help you when you need to make that schedule look stellar. So I love this picture because I think about how many chefs and how many sous chefs are in the dental kitchen. The chef is typically, as you know, the lead. They're the ones deciding on the entree and the menu, and the sous chefs are the support team. They're getting all the ingredients ready for that chef to put that meal together. So have you ever felt like you've cooked up a beautiful schedule for the day, you leave the practice and you come in the next morning and you have found that someone or the doctor has changed the recipe overnight before you came in the next day?
Someone
I don't know how you...
Who would do that, Chris?
Maybe the doctor.
Oh.
Maybe a team member that thought this might look a little bit better. Let's change it around. And you come in and you scream and you freak out and you think, who changed my recipe? So When you are the person that's accountable for the schedule and you've designated the team to help you or be the sous chefs, you have to keep checking in with your team so that you all can work together and make sure that they understand that you are working on making that recipe the best recipe for the practice. You want to allow them to give feedback and you want to work together, pointing out opportunities, but make sure that they understand, hey, I'm the lead chef, guys. I got to make sure that this recipe holds. So
maybe I can clarify this a little bit, Chris, because this, for those that might be watching this and the doctor's not in the room, this would be a good one to make sure the doctor listens to this. This is a leadership issue. Yeah. And we run into this a lot, and it needs to be addressed up front. There's an accountability issue, which is if someone, and this is what we recommend, someone needs to be accountable for the schedule. One person at the end of the day is answerable for the result of that schedule. Now, everybody can participate. Plenty of sous chefs in the office. Everybody's a sous chef. Everybody participates in the building of the schedule. But at the end of the day, someone needs to be accountable for the end result of that schedule. So that being the case, then if I am, for example, the doctor, I am, in this case, a sous chef.
Yes.
Because I have given the accountability for the schedule. I've delegated that to a team member, to the scheduler, and I now become a member of the team to help build a successful schedule based on the template or the cookie cutter that we've all decided on up front. So if I'm going to make changes, then I need to go to the chef and say, I've looked at it, I'd like to change a couple of ingredients, this is what I recommend, this is what's going to work better for me because of these circumstances, and we work together to make that change. If I go in and just arbitrarily make it myself without any kind of communication, then I have destroyed accountability.
Absolutely.
Now, whoever the chef is no longer really accountable for the end result. So this is a big leadership issue. Someone needs to be accountable for the schedule, and that decision needs to be made, and then the template needs to be chosen, and then the chef bakes the schedule according to the recipe or the cookie cutter or the template. That is proper leadership.
Proper leadership. And Steve, I think as you're talking, I know that there's team members listening that are looking at each other, and they're doing the They're kind of looking at each other. And if this resonates with you in any way and your doctor's not watching this seminar, get together with your doctor and talk about what Steve just said. Because it's important for everybody to understand who's the chef, who are the sous chefs, and to help support each other there. Make sense?
Sounds good. If the doctor has a problem with that, have them call me. Be happy to talk them through it.
I love it. So, let's talk about when those patients are coming in the practice. We talk about how we want to get all these patients through the door and fill our schedule. And our biggest concern is we give them a way in, and sometimes they slip through the back door. And what we mean by that is, for whatever reason, they don't stay. We want our patients to have one way in and one way out. And that means they come in the front door, they leave out the front door, and they stay in the practice. They're retained in the practice. And how it pertains to scheduling is about what do we do to get a commitment from that patient to help them stay and help them go in the front door and go out the front door. So sometimes team members think that cancellations or changes to the schedule or revamping the schedule always happen at the front. And the truth is that it's a lot to do with what impact the clinical team has on the patient as well while they've got them in their treatment room. So why not talk about what we say to patients when they're in the chair? Talking with the patient in the hygiene chair. Hygienists, it's very simple to go back and share with the patient how well they're doing. For example, Steve, if you were my patient and I'm the hygienist, I could say, you know, Steve, we've had a really good visit today. And in fact, I'm noticing that because you've had excellent home care and you've really stayed committed to what you need to do at home as well as come here, you've had an excellent visit as far as no major concerns that we've seen. Isn't that great?
That's great.
So can I share with you how you can continue to have appointments with me just like today?
Go for it.
Well, I've noticed that my top 20% healthiest patients come in for their reserved appointments with me every 6 months faithfully, just like you did today, and partner with me so that they're doing what you did with the home care and they keep coming back so that we can always make sure you're healthy and we can always make sure that if anything arises, we can catch it at an early enough stage. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Great. So let's go ahead and make sure we do that. And when we go up front to see Pam, we'll go ahead and reserve your appointment to keep that going. How does that sound?
Sounds good. So, Chris, in other words, what you're doing, and I think this is one thing that we all need to be reminded about over and over again, is that every time you set an appointment, you're going back to what's important to the patient. So it's not just business as usual. You came in this time, we're going to schedule you next time. You're always going back to what matters most to me as the patient, why I came in the first place, what I'm interested in the future, and you're attaching that next appointment time to what I care about.
What's in it for the patient? Yes.
You got it. And the biggest enemy of that is being busy and just getting on the, getting in sprint mode and say, okay, we're done at this appointment, let's go on to the next one, and we'll have you back, we'll see you back in 3 months, you're on to the next appointment, instead of taking the 1 extra minute to tie that appointment back to something that really matters to me.
Yes, and the doctors and the dental assistants are not exempt from this because they can do it as well. It's as simple as the doctor coming in and validating what the hygienist, what I just did with you, Steve, and just saying, I agree with Chris, Steve. It looks like you've really done a great job at home, and this is going to keep you healthy. So let's make sure we reserve that time together. Same thing with dental assistants when we're in the treatment room seating a permanent crown. Can I share with you what our most successful patients that get the best success out of their crowns do? They reserve their hygiene appointments and they keep them. And that way it goes full circle in the back and helps the patient be committed to what is important to them.
Sounds good.
So the patient comes up front and they've heard about the commitment in the back with the hygienist, and the hygienist does a great relationship linking to you, the front desk, and you can have an excellent last linking role to that appointment, making with getting another commitment from that patient, that final commitment. And this has everything to do with the natural law of integrity. A lot of you are saying over the telephone when you are calling patients about their appointment, that question, will you be here? And the reason you're asking that question goes with the natural law of integrity, that when a patient says, yes, I will, they don't want to go against what they say they're going to be or what they say they're going to do. So what's so wrong about asking that question face to face? When you are facing the patient and handing the appointment card, why not get that final commitment again as you're facing them and handing it to them? So what that means is you stand, you give them the card, and I would say to Steve, I now have you reserved with Pam on Friday, September the 13th at 2 o'clock for your hygiene visit. Will you be here?
I'll be there.
And I look them in the eye and hand them that card. And Steve says exactly what the patient would say. So that is that one last link to help solidify the commitment.
So that is a question, not a statement. Just to clarify. What you said was a question, which is, it's not, Steve, we'll see you next time at 3 o'clock. You said, Steve, we have you scheduled this date, this time. Will you be here? So you're always, that's a commitment when you ask the question and I make the verbal commitment to be there. That may seem like a minor thing, It's a major thing.
Major. Major. We have higher rates of patients keeping their appointments with that simple question. It's pretty amazing how that works. So let's talk about phasing treatment. A lot of times we get handed a treatment plan and we've got a lot of phases on it, right? Lots of treatment for the patient to do. And let's say you've already gone through all the motions of doing the financial arrangements, the patient's agreed, you had them at hello, they're really excited to get started and move forward. And my question is, why do we wait to schedule more than just one appointment? If you're looking at your schedule and your role is that I in team, where you're the silent I, you're accountable for that schedule. So why not go outside of the box and look to schedule more than just one phase? Schedule as many as you can. When the patient understands that you're committed to them, they're committing to their appointments to get what they wanted as the final result of treatment, you can reserve more than just the first phase of treatment. The important thing in doing this is still understanding what's most important to the patient. If you know what their M&M is, what matters most, and you know why they want this treatment done, it's a lot easier to talk about, you know, Steve, now that you've agreed that this is how we're going to get started to get you what you said you wanted, why don't we go ahead and reserve time for you and the doctor for this plan so that we can have this plan in place and have everything mapped out, and you'll know when we're going to finish. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
So guys, this way, this is not only enriching your schedule, but it continues to tell the patient that we're committed to getting through the treatment and that they have a standing engagement, a standing reservation with your doctor to move forward with what they said they wanted. I heard, you know, a while ago, Steve, there's this really cool, this skill that I heard that says questions are the answer.
I've heard that before.
That's familiar to a lot of you. You know, one of the best top skills I ever learned to use when I was in the dental practice was the skill of asking. And that's hard to do for an I. We tend to tell a lot and try to be interesting. So the skill of asking is huge. It opened a lot of doors for me to enhance my schedule and create resources. So what I'm encouraging you all to do is with every patient, as you schedule, you simply ask, in the event there's a change in Dr. Anderson's schedule, may I call you to give you the first opportunity to take that appointment? Now, I know that might sound strange to some of you. However, this builds a permission list that you have of patients that have given you the okay face-to-face to call them and allow you to open up the doors of resources for you to build your schedule in the event that something changes. We never say cancellation.
Chris, to clarify that, so are you saying that to every patient, or are you saying it to the ones that have had to schedule out further that you'd like to move up if possible?
Most times, Steve, I say it to restore, patients that are in the doctor's schedule, whether or not they are scheduled far out or a couple weeks away. I don't filter it out simply because I found patients that I call were still excited to move up based on what I said to them over the telephone.
Got it.
Now, the thing about this is to help me and what helps team members immediately identify, other than making a list, those patients that said yes, I color code them on our schedule. So no matter what software you all have, there are ways that you can either put it in the sidebar of the appointment as, let's say, a red or yellow or a pink, or even assign it a color in your color scheme, color wheel in your software, so that those patients are easily identifiable that they gave the okay. And of course, notes are great. Notes in the journal, notes in the appointment, so that whomever's doing the calling, they know what the patient gave permission for you to do. So let's talk about your resources. How many of you have looked at what your resource list is? You'd be really surprised at how many you have. And when Steve talked about spring cleaning, this is a chance for you to really look in your computer, in your files, what's available to you in your software, and really see what your resources are, because you've got resources in your systems and you've got resources with your team. So what I mean about the systems part is, for some of you, you may not realize you have the ability to go to a broken appointment list. And I love those lists because those are patients that said yes already at some point in time. You can go to the ASAP list that we just talked about. You can go to a VIP list. I like to call VIP lists because those are people that can't seem to successfully stay on your schedule, i.e. chronic counselors. But we put them on a VIP list because they've agreed to be called last minute. Now, when I say about using your resources with the team, lots of times you know that your team members know things about patients that you may not know. When you are having challenges with your schedule, why not gather the team in a mini huddle and let them know what your needs are so that they can support you, and allow them the opportunity to offer ideas as well as utilizing the patients in the chair. They can understand what your needs are, and you'd be really surprised, if you haven't utilized your team already, what they're capable of doing. Another real key resource is what we call a TOPS, weekly meeting agenda. And what that is it allows you to reserve some time, usually about an hour, with your team at the beginning of the week, not at lunch, so you don't compete with food, but first thing in the morning when everybody's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And you go over the agenda, which part of it goes over the schedule. And it allows the team as a whole to talk about challenges that they see 2 weeks ahead of time, opportunities that you may not know about, time frames that need to be changed. And planning ahead does some amazing things to your schedule. It, again, goes back to allowing you more control, as well as looking at it in a different way instead of the day of, where you have an opportunity to make changes that can make an impact on the schedule and the practice. So how many of you have been to a football team and watched them huddle in the middle of the field? We know that they huddle to talk about a new play and how to gain over the team that they're playing against, make points, win the game, make plays that are winning through the game. Well, if you have a mom, what we call it TOPS a Mom, which is a morning opportunity meeting, in place, that's an excellent opportunity for you to huddle in the morning and talk about the schedule and talk about the patients that are coming in today, whether they need more treatment or you have challenges. It's an opportunity to talk about the urgency message that you build with a patient to bring concern about treatment that they need while the doctor is with the patient in the chair. The mom is huge at setting the course of the day so that the team can support you with your schedule, as well as the template like what we spoke of before. Now, if this word sounds unfamiliar to you and you don't know what a mom is, the mom does stand again for a morning opportunity meeting, and that will be available to everybody that's listening in on the call at the Crown Council website. We want to set you guys up for success. So if you don't have that agenda or the weekly team meeting agenda, please go to the Crown Council website and we'll have that available to you so you can get started with that today. So Steve, you remember when Katrina and the levees occurred?
Yeah, I do. I think everybody remembers that.
That was pretty devastating. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
You know, the thing that I remember most about that story is that all the media kept saying that they knew that those levees would break, that they foresaw that there could be something occurring. They knew that there could be an emergency situation, yet they didn't plan. And I think about that in the practice. What is our emergency plan? What do we do in the event that a storm is about to occur? Do we have a plan in place? Meaning, what happens if the schedule isn't going the way that I hope it is? What if it falls apart? What if I can't seem to get patients to follow my lead? And we're suggesting that you come up with an EMS. An EMS plan, it's an emergency plan. It's when you get the team together and you evaluate your resources, just like we talked about before. You look to the team for your resources and have a plan in the event of ... Then you make the call. Making the call is not only making a decision as a team, but it's going to the phone, making the call using verbal skills, and getting your schedule back in place. Then you schedule the appointment. So that's the EMS. Evaluate your resources, make the call, schedule the appointment, and you talk about how you're going to schedule that appointment and what verbal skills you're going to use for that. The commitment verbiage and things that we've talked about earlier don't just stop face-to-face. They can happen over the phone. However, if you don't have an emergency plan or an EMS plan with your team, I suggest you write those letters down today and go back after this call and really come up with some sort of plan so you're prepared and you don't have to run around and try to figure out what do we do. You've got a plan ready to go. And finally, make that call. A lot of times when we are calling patients to fill the schedule, I know that you feel that you're trying to fill the schedule, and actually the opposite is true. When you are making those calls to take care of your patients, the filling of the schedule is a result. And once that clicks for you, and once you understand this is about what I'm going to do to meet the patient where they're at, even though it's going to fill these holes that I know are sitting there staring at me on my computer screen, if I keep going back to what's important to the patient and take care of them, filling of the schedule is going to be the result of that. So I don't want to leave you with just that. I want to give you some verbiage because we all know that what you say is the most important thing here. So, Steve, we know that sometimes we have to leave a generic message on the voicemail, and sometimes we get to talk to a patient, right?
You got it.
So here's a suggestion if you get a voicemail, because 9 out of 10 times you're going to get a patient call you back. And if you haven't written down anything yet, this is the time to pick up your pencil and write this down. And that is, voicemail answers, I say, "Hi, Steve, this is Chris calling from Dr. Peterson's office. Dr. Peterson asked me to call you. Will you please call her back at 555-555-5555. Thank you," and hang up. And the reason for that is when they hear that the doctor has asked you to call them and wants them to call the doctor back, there's a different level of urgency, importance, and impact. And you'll be surprised how quickly those patients will call you back. And let's say if you get a patient live. Steve, will you be my patient again?
I'm a role for which I have rehearsed for many years.
Excellent. So I'd call and I'd say, "Hi, Steve. This is Chris from Dr. Peterson's office. How are you?"
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Great, great. Well, Dr. Peterson asked me to call you, Steve, because she knows you have a reserved appointment with her on next week, Monday at 1. However, she had a change in her schedule, and she asked me to personally call you to see if you'd like to take advantage of that appointment time and come in today at 1 o'clock. Would that work for you?
1?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be a lot better. That'd be great.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Okay, well, we will make sure that we've got everything ready. We will be waiting for you, and we will see you at 1 o'clock today. Will you be here?
I will be there.
Great. Awesome.
Now,
So
point of interest, Chris, you didn't say we've had a cancellation on our schedule. Would you like to come in?
exactly.
Okay, so rehearse with everybody again. What is it? How exactly did you phrase that?
I said, first I talked about the word reserve. So I said, I already know you have a reserved appointment next week, and I named the time. And then I said, however, the doctor's had a change in her schedule, and she wanted me to personally ask you if you would like to take advantage of that appointment time.
Got it.
I even said she thought of you first. So, it has a lot more of a relationship value when you say it in that way. And when you start having patients say, I felt like you were calling me because I won the lottery, you know that it's working.
You did.
You know that it's working. So just remember, it's about the content and what you're saying as far as verbal skills.
Got it.
Okay, so let's talk about what the result will be, Steve, once we go through all of these points as a team and they start applying. They can smile?
You can absolutely smile. Hopefully, lots more smiles around the house, and we hope that you can cancel your next therapy appointment because you will be much more sane in how you're running the office. So there's a couple of things. Chris is going to kind of give you a quick bullet point review of what we've talked about, and then we'll answer questions. I think the key here is there are some, and I'm not going to call them basic fundamentals because that makes it sound like it's elementary. There are some core skills around scheduling that really make when you stick with those core skills, some of which Chris has talked about today, then it smooths out the process and it makes it a lot easier. This clearly is not an easy process. I mean, you got to work at it every day. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And when you use the correct verbal skills, the system input, and have everybody on the same team out there, knock off front office team effort, then scheduling becomes an effort, not this effort that you're trying to solve every minute. So, Chris, why don't you give us a quick bullet points summary of action items to go back and discuss with the team?
Okay. So first we're going to talk about a template on the perfect shape for the team, making sure as a group you understand and you know the goal so everyone can support you, and having a real clear discussion as a team, including the doctor, about what that means so that you can keep the recipe intact, closing that back door so that we keep the patients coming in and out the front door with a commitment in the back, as well as with the last link at the front, getting the commitment when you hand the appointment card over. Thinking about scheduling more than just one phase, doing all of the treatment on your schedule. Asking, making your own ASAP list, as well as using your resources in the systems and with your team. Utilizing your morning opportunity meeting as a starting point to get a better handle on the schedule and get support from your team, as well as what's our emergency plan? What do we have in place to evaluate our resources, make the call, scheduling the appointment, and finally, what do we say when we're making that call so that the patient feels it's all about them?
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you, Chris, for the pointers. All right, let's answer some questions here before we wrap up. Greg?
I have 4. The
Excellent.
first one is, would you review your example of feel, felt, and found, and use those words in your example? They were a little confused with the felt, which they didn't hear.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Happy to do it. So feel would be, feel, felt, found is, I understand how you feel. Other patients have felt the same way. However, what we have found that works really well for those patients is ...
Perfect. Second question, which may be an entire separate webinar. How do you respond when a patient wants to wait on treatment because they have insurance restrictions? And if you could do that in, like, a sentence, that'd be great.
Exactly. So and let me clarify, because I think the insurance restrictions are meaning that their insurance will pay for so much work, and then they've maxed out their benefits, so they want to wait until next year until they have more benefits. So that probably is a whole other webinar. Chris, you can add on here. Let's go back to a basic fundamental principle, which is in all of the training that we do in the Crown Council and Total Patient Services Institute, one of the core principles is absolutely critical to find out first what patients perceive the need and what they want. Because if we're going through the traditional diagnose, treatment plan, present, and we're just telling people what they need, that is contrary to everything I know about human psychology. What I do know is that people are going to do what they want to do, not necessarily what they need to do, but they'll always do what they want to do. So our job is to find out first what they want. And when we find out what they want, then we work together with the patient to help them get what they want. And that could be any number of things. That's a whole, it could be anything from help them save money, save time, a better appearance for an event coming up, whatever it is. Because then, now that I know what they want, we're now working together to help them get what they want in the context of everything else that's going on. So then, instead of insurance being the center of the discussion, it's a peripheral issue. It's not the obstacle, it's a help. So, for example, it's not your insurance will only cover this, but it's your insurance savings or your benefits are going to save you this amount of money. But again, the key is if there's one answer to that is, if a patient says to me, well, I want to wait next year for my insurance, my first question would be, what is it that the patient wanted in the beginning? And did we identify that? To what degree did we identify what they really want? And are we really helping them get it? Or are we just diagnosing, treatment planning, presenting what we see they need? And that's usually where I want to wait until my insurance will pay for it discussion comes to that. So not 100%.
The next question refers to your discussion about leaving the voicemail message to call the doctor back. And the question is, how do you respond when they call back saying they are returning the doctor's call and they want to...
So it's really important to make sure that notes are the key here, guys. You want to put notes in the file of their appointment so that everybody on the team knows you've been making those calls and they don't run to get the doctor. Second, when they do call, you say, I'm so glad you called. Yes, Dr. Anderson asked me to call you because, and then you fill in the blank. He was concerned, or he knows you had a reserved appointment with him on Monday at 1 o'clock, and you say the other verbiage. He's had a change in his schedule, wanted me to personally ask if you'd like to take advantage of that appointment time. But notes are the key. You tell everybody, hey guys, I made one of those calls. I'm making them right now. I'm making a bunch of them. So if a patient calls back asking for the doctor, it's for me. It's me.
Excellent. Okay, next question. They've asked for some verbiage when you get a patient on the phone who is calling to cancel or reschedule. You know, when now the window is real short and it's difficult to fill the spot.
Got it. Okay. So first suggestion is, if you have not watched the Crown Council webinar entitled Stop Cancellations, I highly recommend that on a regular basis. So you can get to that, crowncouncil.org, under the training tab, go to webinars, and it would be in the webinar library under Stop Cancellations. So Chris, let's say that you're that patient and you're calling now last minute to cancel your appointment. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set my first and only response is I'm going to say, "Oh, Chris, would you hold for just a moment while I get your records?" I'm going to put her on hold, and then I'm going to pull up her records on the computer, or go get her chart, whichever it is, so I can gather my thoughts, and I'm going to look for what she's scheduled for, when she's scheduled, why it was important to her in the first place, when she scheduled it, so that I've got all that information. And then when I get back on the phone, I'm going to say, "Okay, Chris, you're scheduled today with Dr. Jones at 2 o'clock for the prep work on those 4 crowns that we're going to do for you for your upcoming class reunion," or whatever it is. I mean, I'm going to go back to what the real reason was that we scheduled those in the first place. And I say, "I know you have a really busy schedule and things change, but let me ask you this. Is there any possible way, because I know how important this is to you, is there any possible way that you can keep this appointment as originally scheduled? Any way at all?" So I'm going to ask one more time to reinforce the importance of the appointment. And if she says, "Well, no, I can't do this, this meeting came up at work, and it's my job and my boss and blah, 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 blah." So then what I'm going to say is, "Okay, Chris, I understand stuff like this happens. Let me ask you a question. Which day of the week do you have the most control over? Monday through Friday, Monday, Thursday, whatever it is, where you've got the least likelihood of any kind of an interruption in your schedule when we can schedule this so this doesn't happen again?" So I'm going to be firm but friendly. But the underlying message is this is not a regular occurrence that when patients schedule appointments we expect to keep them. So you're going to be nice, but I'm not going to just let her run all over and create havoc with the schedule. So it's all in the verbal skills. So now at least I've figured out how to. I'll lose the patient anyway. So but at least now I'm doing a little bit of training so that for the next appointment she's going to think twice about depending on what this you schedule it in such a way so that say, "Well, that's fine, Chris. Can't come in at 2 o'clock today. Can you come in at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning?" I mean, it looks like we're desperate and we don't have anything else to do. I mean, you're really the only patient we have scheduled this week, so we really want you to come in. Obviously, we don't want to do that. So just food for thought. But all of those verbal skills are in the Stop Cancellations webinar that's on the Crown Council website. So if you haven't watched that recently, it's a great resource.
2 more quick questions. This one has a little different focus than some of the others we've talked about. Any suggestions on handling a schedule that is too full? In their office, their insanity usually comes from the problem of being in high demand and patients having to wait several weeks or months to get the treatment that they desire.
That's a good problem to have, in a sense. It goes back to sitting down with a team, because most times when practices are at that level, it's because they haven't sat down together and really talked about the plan and talked about what the schedule looks like and what it's creating as far as the final outcome for the patients. They have to really look at it ahead of time and talk about what they can do to still make it productive, but cater to the patient so that we don't have patients that should have been in 3 months ago coming in now because we're the ones creating that issue.
So there's a strategy question there, Greg. I mean, in addition to the tactics of handling that, the short term, there's a strategy discussion to have there that would include, is this a consistent trend? Are we getting more new patients that we can handle? Then strategically as a business, how do we want to handle that? Do we want to expand? Do we want to drop some insurance plans where we're providers? There's a lot of different ways to handle that. But if that's an ongoing issue, that's a strategic question that needs to be addressed.
Excellent.
And I got a whole list of those strategic questions. So if whoever asked that question, if you want some specific help, just email us, and I'd be happy to shoot those to you.
She is a dear friend of yours.
Excellent.
The last question I think I can answer. Someone lost the signal and wanted to get the rest of the webinar in a part they missed, and also someone who wanted kind of a printout of things that were talked about today so that they could share it with the rest of the team. All of this will be posted online. So the Crown Council's website is crowncouncil.org. The webinars are under the training tab. And if you are a team member and you are listening to this and you haven't yet signed on to crowncouncil.org, you are allowed to sign on there just as is the doctor. Just go to the sign up screen rather than signing in. If you haven't been in before, sign up. We will approve it, and then you will have access to the training tab. And under that, not only this webinar, but the other webinars that we have done, including the ones that Steve talked about today, the Stop Cancellations webinar, and some others. And that
Greg,
is the end.
Let me just add one more thing for anybody. There's many who have been in the Crown Council for a long time, some that are relatively new. The best basic training in all of these skills at the basic level is at the Total Immersion course. We don't talk about it yet, so I'm going to promote here real quick. But the Total Patient Service Total Immersion course is the baseline training that every doctor and team member to have a basic understanding of all of these skills that we talked about. So just as a reminder, that's an experience that most Crown members have had and really sets the foundation for really building a great practice. Thanks for being with us today, everybody. More great webinars on the horizon. Thanks for joining us. Listen and re-listen, implement. Thanks for being part of us, and thanks for being part of a great organization in the Crown Council. Look forward to being with you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.